All right, so it's the middle of the day, Sunday now, and I finally was able to, by the time I got the issue with the GoPro SD card malfunction resolved, which was just a problem that it was unplugged from the computer when I was transferring files, and it wasn't ejected properly, and then sometimes that, I don't know what happens, but it does something to the card, so then the GoPro has trouble with the card. Anywho, finally got the camera where it's staying on. So, first order of business, get all the loose parts away from the tractor. Huh?
Hey.
You know when I had you unplug it from the computer?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't ejected properly the last time it was used, so look at that, something pooped all over this thing. That's kind of gross.
Daddy, yesterday I almost
Yeah.
had a snake over there.
It was what?
Caught a snake.
Caught a snake.
Yeah, hold it down.
Yeah. How big?
It was a garden snake.
Oh yeah. Yep, Peter gets pretty freaked out by those. Second there, I thought it was a bee's nest. I think it's just that goldenrod. The bees are loving that goldenrod.
What was wrong with it?
Huh?
What was wrong with it?
Tractor?
Yeah.
The steering box is broken.
Did it start at all?
I had this tractor running. Ow. Oh. Dropped it on my foot.
I think that's a spider.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of them.
What if we could replace all the bearings in there? To get that thing out.
Geez, then it'll be a big project, won't it?
Yeah, did you sell it?
Worth more in parts. I could probably sell this loader off of this thing for more money than I paid for the whole tractor. That's not the point. I don't want to.
Do you think the hydraulics work?
Huh?
Hydraulics?
On the loader?
Yeah.
It did.
They're all rusted.
They're all rusted. Where?
Right here, and then
Yeah, that's the exposed part. You watch it. If you get this running under the loader up, you'll see something all good.
should have any food in it.
Probably has water in it. What's your point, really? All these bees. One yellow jacket. That's good, not a yellow jacket.
Now I'm standing over there, really?
Yeah.
You gonna move it?
Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's any bees nesting in this thing. These yellow jackets are just here for this 1 hour.
What? What? You need to say what? What? You need to change.
Get further back.
What?
Because of the chain break. roll and it turns that way, and the roll is that gravity. Yeah, we're good. Moving this tractor in case that rolls this way. So the reason why I stopped on the first pull and then had to use the loader bucket to push the tractor back forward was because this tie rod arm, which I actually have now rotated around, and it's stuck in the front because this wheel turned. But when this wheel was turned a little bit more this way, the tie rod arm was on the ground and I didn't notice it, so I started backing up. It dug into the ground, bent this right here. This may have already been bent though, because this tie rod arm is very sorry shape. Those of you who've watched the whole series and remember from the beginning, this tie rod arm actually has angle iron welded to it to beef it up. So somebody decided that instead of not pushing the tractor to its limits and driving it in situations where it would need that extra beefing up, keep these from bending, they decided to just reinforce these and then put the forces on everything else. And these steering boxes on these tractors were notorious for having problems on tractors where people would either do the, have the problem of using a loader on the tractor and not properly using the loader, and also using the truck tires on the front, like these, as a cheap alternative to the correct 3-rib agricultural tire, which has a much lower contact area. The 3-rib tire is very rounded, so the actual amount of tread that's actually on the ground is lower, unless it's in like a furrow in a garden or something like that. So anyways, these tires are not the best idea on this front end. And the loader, what I mean by the loader, some say never put a loader on an IH350 with this style gearbox. Others say you can have a loader on there, you just have to be respectful of the limitations, and if you've got a heavy load in there and the tractor's not moving, just like any vehicle, when a vehicle is not moving and you rely solely on the power steering to turn the wheels, and they're basically having to be forced to pivot on this contact area, which on these tires is wider, you're putting a tremendous amount of force on your power steering system. So one of the ways to alleviate that, and that is exasperated when you have a heavy weight on the front, i.e. a loader that's full, loader bucket. One of the way to counteract that is, if you do need to make a turn with the tractor not moving, is to drop the bucket down, and if you have a downforce loader, to actually use the loader to take some of the weight off the front end and then make your turn. I think the next order of business is I'm going to see whether or not I can figure out a way to get this loader up a little bit off the ground, because I'm going to have trouble moving this anywhere with these wheels wanting to do this. The other wheel's staying straight right now, but it's going to have a tendency to want to turn. This wheel's already turned full, so we're dragging it sideways. If we get the loader up and hook onto the front with the front end loader on the Oliver, we might be able to lift the whole front end of the tractor off the ground, and then it'll just drive on its rear wheels and we could drag it to pretty much any place we want. All right, so I think that if I lift that loader up with the front end loader on the Oliver, so I can get these arms to come up high enough, I think I could take this 4x4, this is the remains of a big old pallet. But anyways, this pressure treated 4x4 with some scraps of 2x4 attached to it. I can actually stick that in right through here, so it'll be under these arms and resting across these supports. Not sure if that's going to try and push back into the radiator and damage the radiator. Alternatively, I could raise it up even higher and leave this up here, but same problem. I'm worried about it's going to have a tendency to want to push this back this way. Then it'll catch the top of the radiator and damage it. Well, I think the first thing is let's see if we can get the loader to go up. Well, when I had it under there, that was good because this kept that from wanting to shift back. But that wasn't lifting the bucket high enough off the ground. So now with it here, the problem is the actual force is being put on in this direction. So it's going to have a tendency to want to either let this roll over that way or slide back on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a ratchet strap to try and tie this into those center supports in that direction.
So, what are you doing?
Huh?
What are you doing?
Oh, stand back, Mark.
Why?
Because if this were to fall out, if this were to slip out, this would come crashing down. And more importantly, you're blocking my view, the camera.
Daddy, what's happening?
I'm putting this big piece in here so that when I lower this down, the loader will stay up off the ground.
So are you going to take this loader off?
No.
Why?
Huh?
Why?
Because for now, it's going to deal with it.
Do you think there's mice living in there?
I don't know, Mark. Why do you ask? Do you need some mice?
No, there's a mice hole.
There's a mice hole?
Yeah, right there.
All right. The diesel injection system on the Oliver 770 Waukesha diesel has a nasty problem. Or, it's not really a problem, it's a side effect, interesting phenomenon. When it runs out of fuel, right before it runs out of fuel, it races the engine. The engine runs away. So that's what just happened there. Of course, the problem is, I wasn't expecting it, it kind of freaked me out, so I quickly threw it into went to throw the shuttle shift into forward and hit reverse, and that's why the tractor kind of lurched there. No damage done, but well, other than I gotta go change my shorts. All right, added 5 gallons of diesel. With a little luck, it'll restart, might race for just a bit, and then it might sputter, act kind of funny, and then even out. That's if I'm lucky. If I'm not lucky, it either won't restart or it'll start, race, and die, which means air in the system that I'm going to have to bleed out, which can be kind of a pain in the butt. I just don't have good enough control trying to drive this thing with the loader on the front there and hooked up the way I do. I can't make it around these trees that I got to get through to get it up into the yard. So I think maybe I am going to try and just drop the loader off of this thing. Okay, so we're probably going to run out of time today, but I'm going to pull a loader off right here because I can't get it any closer to that. I can't maneuver this thing with the loader on. Plus, I don't like the idea that I'm going to be working on the engine in here, sticking my arms in there, and basically the only thing saving me from having my arms snapped off is this 4x. So for safety reasons, for ease of access and all of that, I'm going to get this loader off, which I should have done a long time ago. And I'm looking at it, trying to figure out exactly how that works. Ooh, boy, you think the seal in this one's bad? Look at that. See all the oil came out?
Mm-hmm.
That's got a bad seal. So, amongst everything else that needs to be worked on. So, how do you take this loader off, which I believe this is a Lord loader. I think I found a data plate on it somewhere and determined that this was a Lord loader. So trying to figure out exactly how this works. And it appears to me that the way they designed it is that those brackets there with the 4 bolts, 2 on this side and 2 on the other, are made to be able to stay on the tractor, and that you only have to take that cross bolt out. Because the way that that's sandwiched in there, when you take that bolt out, the only way that this can come out is if this is lifted up or down. Well, up's not going to work because this tube right here wraps underneath the tractor. You can see it right there. Also, that happens to be your low point drain because they use this frame. This section of the frame is also the reservoir for the hydraulic fluid on the loader. It's kind of an ingenious thing, sort of. Anyways, problem is if you get any stress cracks, you end up with leaks. Okay, so it appears that if I take those bolts out, we can drop this front of the loader down. But I don't want it to just fall down, so I'm going to put my floor jack underneath there. I'm going to have to jack it up some anyways just to get the pressure off of those bolts so I can slide those bolts out. Then the question becomes, well, what do you do next? Well, the back of the loader frame hooks onto the axles of the tractor through this plate. It's kind of like a shackle. So by taking those nuts off, you can actually take the back of the plate off. So once that front end's dropped down far enough and this is disconnected, theoretically, you could back the tractor out from the loader. The problem is the front wheels are going to hit this part of the loader right here. So we figure they must expect you to lift this back part of the loader up, raise it up as you're driving the tractor back out. And there's evidence to support that in the fact that right here on top of the loader, there's a hook welded. So this is definitely a lift point for the loader. So I think maybe on the farm, maybe you would have a place in the barn or someplace where you could drive this underneath, or drive it under a tree, I guess, with a stout enough branch and a come along, and you could probably hook right onto this thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the front end loader of the, can I help you, Aiden?
No, I was looking to see if the plate was there.
I think it's on this side actually. It's right here. It is right here. Aiden, you want to try and read this? Oh, this is a Superior loader. Doesn't that say Superior?
The Superior.
Yeah, and then there's probably a model number, but it might be hard to see. That's really
H-240W.
all right. So this is a Superior loader. It's not a Lord loader. All right. But anyways, I think we get a plan. Now it's just a matter of execution. All right, so these nuts were actually very easy to undo. These look like they're all galvanized bolts. So anyways, but those bolts aren't going anywhere because right now there's probably quite a bit of force on them. So the plan is to see if we jack up on this jack, whether or not we can actually take some of the pressure off of these bolts.
Can you bang on it a little bit?
Just a little bit, see.
I need
Probably have to do a little more than that. Yep. The whole tractor's lifting up and it's not even moving, so. We're gonna need a long rod that we can put on the end of that. And a bigger
Where's that
handle.
crowbar?
No, that's not gonna be good enough.
Hmm.
All right, while I was up there at the house getting a 1.25 inch wrench for the rear and a drift and a hammer, my son, Aiden, noticed that the bolt on the other side was loose and it slid right out. So pressure was off of that one for whatever reason. So let's see if we can't figure out exactly how much we have to lift on this to get this to loosen. There we go. Hydraulic line right in the way. Right where we want to drop that bolt out. That figures. It's still going to be in the way? That wash is going to fall off. Grab that washer before we lose it. Alright, hold on. I think I can pull that. That's a rigid hydraulic line that it's attached to, but I think it'll flex just enough to pull it, push that out of the way. So, here, I'll pull on the line, you get the thing out. There we go. Alright. So now I'm curious what will happen is if we lower this jack. Oh yeah. Yep, that's happening. That's actually dropping. That's exactly what I expected to happen. So now let's unbolt the rear. They're 1.25 inches, they're very tight. They're gonna probably be very tight because see how rusted they are? These aren't galvanized like the other ones were.
Is this the same size?
Oh, you know what? There's like no room to... There's no room to bang on these things. From that angle.
How are you gonna do
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but how are you gonna do it?
I think we're gonna need
A blowtorch?
no, a blowtorch. Get the 1.25 inch socket with a long extension and a breaker bar, and we might be able to do it that way.
And
That's what we got, 1.25 inch. That's what we can't use the ratchet. What we need is we need
a breaker.
this and then a breaker, a long extension and a breaker bar, which is not a ratchet, it's a solid one,
Yeah. The one that,
which I have.
where you got 2 of them and the tips are broken off of them?
Yes, I love that story. I'm gonna call it quits right here. As always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.